Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI Monday's new championship, the Deutschland Masters. As the name suggests, we're allowing only the use of German manufacturers from the main marques of Audi, BMW, Mercedes, and Porsche. And tonight, we're bringing you round one from a very hot and sunny Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli. I'm your lead commentator for tonight, John Dalton, and alongside me is Ryan Mawson and Stewie Harman behind the cameras. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, John. Probably one of my favourite circuits in ACC is Misano. It's a track that I actually use for testing most of my cars, as much as people say that I'm crazy, and quite a few drivers that I know don't like it. But I'm really looking forward to this championship just because there's quite a mix, of cars. Usually we see sort of some of the regular metas, and you will see the odd, Audi and Mercedes out in main competition, but it's always smattered with, the likes of the McLarens and the other cars. Whereas now it is just Germany versus Germany.
Yeah, certainly. So it's going to be a very interesting championship, Ryan, as we see a few common names up and down the leaderboard. You may be noticing a few tonight. Everybody has pre-qualified to be here tonight. And this is obviously split one, the very top end of the qualifying. So we have very common names that you may recognize, such as Barzaghi, Machuska, Shipston, Boardman, Daly, Kumpu, and Eraser, just to mention a few. And this man here as well, Chris Downing in the Mercedes, looking very, very competitive in practice as well. Times are very mixed across the board. Noticing on the splits, we have certain marques that are confident in Sector 1, a completely different car for 2, and again, another car for 3. So, it's going to be a very mixed bag tonight, Ryan. Obviously, drivers, not everybody here mains these cars as such. Some people obviously picking the off car that they don't normally choose. So, anybody's guess for the win tonight, I think.
Yeah, there's a few people finally sort of stepping outside of their comfort zone of their regular cars. Obviously, there are some people in here who absolutely loved when this championship was announced. I'm looking at you, Wolf Matushka, in the 25 Audi. Of course, Wolf is going to be here. I don't think that I've ever really seen Wolf drive anything else other than that Audi, so he's definitely going to be one that I'm going to be watching for a fast qualifying time. But it is going to be, as he says, very interesting with a mix of front and mid-engined, and obviously the more rear balanced of the Porsche. The cars really come alive in different sectors, and I can imagine, coming through like Sector 3, for example, the Porsche being terrifying. But as we ride on board Chris Downing's through the first couple of corners, it's very easy to run wide here. You kind of want to take those anti-cut curbs, but not too much. It will skittle the car out. Obviously, it really wants to run wide out left here. And this, the double right-hander, there's quite a lot of adverse camber here. You really want to set yourself up for the exit, as much as some people kind of run wide there and, then cut the left-hander. It is much faster to do what Chris Downing did, sacrifice the corner in the mid, and then you have a power drive out onto the end of the circuit, braking hard into the first hairpin. Another one with a lot of adverse cambers, and you can run out wide, but be careful not to push it too much. You can invalidate your lap there, and I know because I've done that before. Top of the hairpin hill, it is very, very late at apex. You're kind of always looking for it, and eventually it does come. And then you've got the back straight where we're going to see the power cars sing, and well, the Mercedes with its gigantic V8, of course, it's going to sing down here. Very scary sections here. You've got to go double fast right-hander, and then you're braking while turning in. You've got to be careful here not to run too wide. That is the worst place on the whole track for track limits and ruining your qualifying lap. But Chris Downing still valid as it stands, cutting the penultimate corner perfectly, and up to the last turn. You've once again not got to run wide here, clipping the anti-cuts on the outside just a little bit, and the first flying lap will be a 1:33.897, and that is a very good time just out of the box.
Yeah, certainly so. Is a great time out of the box, Ryan. Obviously, these Pirellis still not even in their window of operating temperature and pressures yet, so absolutely stonking time there from Chris Downing, as we see a few others coming across the line. Barzaghi, Boardman, Yilmaz, Evardson, nobody even coming close at the moment. So maybe Downing set the car up possibly for a quick, easy first shot at the time. Maybe pressure's a little bit higher out of the pits than they usually would be. Maybe going to go over that limit kind of in the next few laps or so. We might see him come back in to take another set of boots. But Going back to your comment about the curbs, Ryan, it is obviously a motorcycle-based track, obviously approved for motorcycle racing. So all the curbs here are super flat. So if you're in something like the M4, you are going to be abusing every single bump that you can just to get that extra bit of lap time over your opponent. And obviously, a few Porsches here are going to be maybe a little bit careful over the curbs, although they are flat. Obviously, it's very easy to upset that weight balance with the big engine hanging over the rear axle as we ride on board here with Barzaghi into the final sector of turns 12 and 13, heading into 14. As Ryan said, be very careful on track limits on the exit there. I think we're going to see a few warnings being handed out tonight for sure, with these guys pushing the envelope all the time, using all of the anti-cut on the inside there, being careful not to run too wide over the grass. I did that myself a few weeks ago, launched the car into the pit wall on the inside. Very, very easy to do as Barzaghi comes across the line and take provisional pole with a 133.6. Downing still 0.290 to find on Barzaghi if he can. This man here, Wolf Matuszka, takes provisional 4th place in the Audi, a car that he is very, very familiar with, Ryan.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the curbs are flat, but those anti-cuts, you would be surprised how they can, they can really unsettle the car. As Brenham takes back the 4th place spot, what has Luke Stokes got? One of the other Mercedes, the pink BWT car, stays at the same for that. It was an improvement on, you can see on the last 134.3, but it was not a valid time. So still got some time to go. That is the one good thing about Misano, is that the lap time is actually fairly low, so you do get quite a few bites at the apple before the checkered flag comes out, as Rudy Philmalter moves up into the 12th place spot, one of the Porsches, and another person as well who's kind of stepped outside of his comfort zone.
Yeah, so Rudy, typically always see him, South African sim racer, normally in the kind of mid-engine cars. Got fond memories of him driving a lot of Audi R8 recently. Possibly seen him in a few other of the mid-engine patterns as well. This man here, Jordan Daly, very, very strong indeed in the front engine platform. Made the Bentley and the M4 work really well last time I saw him on circuit for Triple R, as he comes across the line to take provisional 10th place here. Great time there from Jordan Daly. I'm certainly expecting to see a lot more in that man as Chris Downing comes across the line. Still remains second. Barzaghi follows suit with a very small improvement to a 133.382. Matuszka here using all of the right-hand side to get the dead straight run out the last corner, jumps up into P3. And this man here, Dan Everton, in the M4 again, taking a very straight line to the line and crosses it. P7 still, no improvement from Dan. As we flick back to Luke Stokes, was provisionally P13, been shuffled down to P16, coming up to the line. Looks like a good improvement on the timing delta. Jumps up to P6 in that pink BWT Mercedes, and Mercedes probably one of the cars I'm going to be watching, Ryan, after the last BOP update that we had. It made its improvements in a lot of circuits, gave itself a bit more front end downforce available to it. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys can make it work tonight.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one, as we've seen some of the times for some of those cars start to come down, with the 35C track temp. Mercedes has always historically taken a few laps to get up to temperature, but with the extreme heat, you're going to have to really run the pressures quite low. So, it's only now when some of these cars are starting to come sort of into their optimum window. But as he says, as Paul Kampf runs a little bit wide, that is so easy to do. Elects to sort of square off the corner to keep his lap alive, and it is an improvement still, P17, but we know now that driver's definitely got some time in it. But yeah, it's interesting though, because sometimes a good qualifying car does not make a good race car, and the Mercedes is, when you do put more fuel in them, even if you have a race that is split in two by the pit window, the more fuel that you put in the Mercedes, the more scary that it gets, up until you've either burnt a bit of fuel off or you've finally got those tyres back into the optimum window. So that's going to be one to see.
Yeah, certainly so. And touching on pit stops tonight, we do have a mandatory stop, as always on our Monday championships. There is a mandatory 1 litre of fuel to add. No need to take any tyres. We're leaving that up to the drivers tonight. And obviously with the very high track temperatures, you might pay off to get a fresh set of boots about halfway through the race, as John Eraser jumps up into P17 in the 699. Swiss driver, very commonly seen at a lot of RCI events, especially Mondays. I don't think I've ever casted a championship where I've not seen John Eraser in the field. So one of our regulars here. Very good to see him signing up for another championship. Last time I saw him out in the 720S, now in the R8 Evo 2. So again, a mid-engine platform car, so he should become accustomed to this over the next few races of the season. And a gentleman I've not seen entirely a lot of is Yilmaz here in the number 7 BMW M4 GT3 as he heads down the back straight towards turn 11, 12, and obviously the very tricky turn 13 where Ryan said earlier you've got to kind of break in a diagonal to hit the apex, but then not run yourself out too wide and then stand on the anchors again. It's a very short run into this hairpin between the two corners. Coming around to the penultimate corner, nice wide line, tucks it in very tight, jumps over the anti-cut there, running a little bit of exit curb, keep it clean for the last turn, washes a little bit wide mid-corner, invalidates his lap over those speed humps and the grass, so he's going to have 5 minutes to take another stab at it. There's at least another 3 laps in there if he's got enough fuel and the tyres are beneath him, but very, very easy to make mistakes here, Ryan.
Yeah, that is sort of one of the more common mistakes that you would see, as he says, into sector 3, and that corner particularly is sort of the ender of laps. And even though with that mistake, which obviously would have cost some time, Yilmaz was still a 10th up on his time, so that is another driver where if they can have almost a clean delta all the way to the line, and they may pick up a few temps just in that last corner. It is so tricky, especially with the high temps. The car's really going to want to start washing out from underneath you. And the other thing, talking about cars and the likes, obviously the Deutschland Masters, this being split one, obviously it's the fastest of pre-qualifying, the fastest in the field. Later on, I'm actually going to have a look in the standings. I wonder if anyone took any of the old generation cars. I'm surprised that we haven't seen any speed demons in the old M6. I mean, it's terrible in the corners, but hey, if you want a straight line car, go and drive an M6.
If you want a car with an insane turbo blower flutter valve,
yeah,
the M6 is the choice for you, Ryan. You like your shit-to-twos, pick it by all means.
That is the main reason. I mean, I ran that car in Night Owl, and it was funny because that is what you do. You blast past people in a straight line while making furious turbo noises at them, and then they show you what modern aerodynamics and downforce does by passing you around the outside of a corner. But I still won because I won the drag race.
It is an insanely good car in a straight line, especially at some of the British tracks. So anybody watching's got a few British rounds coming up and they fancy being a bit of a speed demon, the M6 is the choice to pick. As we see here, a few drivers jumping back to the pit lane. 3 minutes still on the clock, so a few more laps to be had yet by those out on track, providing you've got enough fuel and you've got enough Pirelli tyres beneath you, you've not already burnt them up. This man here, Chris Downing, setting the splits alight. Very good on this lap indeed, keeping it very tidy indeed through turn 13, being very careful of the track limits, using all of the track between 14 to 15. Be careful on those track limits. Look like very wide through the penultimate corner there, but can he make it stick to the line? It's looking like a very good lap indeed, being very careful not to run over the exit curb, and Chris Downing comes across the line. Does improve, but not enough to beat Dario Barzaghi in the Porsche. An absolutely stonking lap. Barzaghi 133.382, and Chris Downing's last lap 133.480. So very, very small margin between these two drivers. Obviously over a single lap, can't even separate them, but over a race, it's going to be a game of consistency between these two guys. And obviously with the Porsche fuel tank in the front, it's going to probably feel amazing to start the stint, and then as the fuel burns off, the balance is going to change a little bit. So we might even see, as Ryan said earlier, the Mercedes does kind of come alive in the later half of the stint when the fuel burns off. It's going to be a very interesting switch up between the two, I feel.
Yeah, and that is, the time there is even more amazing when you think about how hot, the track currently is, as Matt Stevens is trying to find a bit of space on the track. He's going to have a drag race with, I think that's Rudy Philbolter, and actually Rudy backs out of it. The two Porsche, two drag races in the Porsche, it's very hard when you are drag racing the exact same opponent, but the Porsche is another interesting one as well, because the Bouncer Performance update also gave this car a little bit more speed in certain tracks in a straight line. I mean, it's not made it amazing, because I just never think that the Porsche is going to have the same speed that, say a Mercedes or an Audi has in a straight line. But it might mean, though, that people like Barsagi, who can really make it sing in the corners as the 77 takes a big slide and actually manages to hold it. Well done to that man. That is going to be a scary moment, moves out of the way. But you've got to keep going because you've only got one more lap. So that's not going to be good on the Pirellis. But yeah, it might mean that people like Barzaghi, who are brilliant through the corners, they might not be as much of a sitting duck anymore on the straight line.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to really switch up the kind of cat and mouse game that, as a Porsche driver, you'd always have with your opponents. You'd always be absolutely blisteringly quick off the line with the NA power, completely out dragging everybody to turn one with the slightly shorter gearing, and then you get around turn one, obviously pull a little bit of a gap, and then as soon as you get to a straight, everybody starts kind of running a train on you, almost like imagine Paul Ricard. The first kind of section's a little bit twisty, and then you get to that long back straight, and that's really where the Porsche used to suffer. But the update, like Ryan says, obviously the top speed has been adjusted slightly, so it's going to be an interesting one to see if the Porsche does struggle as much as it used to on the straight here, as we watch Yilmaz come round on his final flying lap. Looking very good on the sector time, has improved slightly this lap. Let's see if it's enough to take any additional position, and unfortunately it is not. A 133.782, I believe, possibly invalid as well. Looking at the time, it hasn't flipped to his best lap, so unfortunately exercising track limits somewhere along the line. As we watch here, Mark Ham coming round in the M4 GT3 towards the final turn. Again, on a flyer, he's on for a slight improvement if it's enough to jump him up any positions towards the front of the grid, and he crosses with a big jump there. 4 positions gained up into P14 as Hula comes around now in the number 21 Pink Pig Porsche, jumps to P14. Again, a good improvement there, almost hitting the back of Wolf Matuszka, who stopped after the line. Have our Norwegian BMW here, car 13, no improvement, remains in P7. I believe, Brian, we only have one more car to come across the line. 98, as currently resides in P18 towards the line, and I believe already abandoned it before he even crossed. So qualifying wrapped up. We have 3 different manufacturers in the top 3. So it really is anybody's game to take, isn't it?
And that's also kind of shows, like what we were saying before in free practice, there was 3 different marquees had the 3 purples. Well, this time the Porsche has managed to dominate all of the points where the handling matters, sector 1, sector 2. But the Mercedes does have the power down the back straight, and that really comes alive in sector 3. But if you look, it's not even a tenth of a second. It's like half of a tenth, 50 thousandths really, and that's all that separates it, which means that it's really going to be an interesting race because before the Porsche would have got to sector 3 and then have been overtaken. That's just how it used to be. And this update, though, might actually save the Porsche drivers down the back. So it's going to be an interesting one. And Wolf Matuszka, the person who I thought might be on pole, down in 6th place.
Yeah, certainly is a bit of a mixed grid here tonight, and going to touch briefly while we wait for the race to begin. 4 minutes of wait time on the calendar for this season. So the Deutschland Masters finds the RCI circus touring all over Europe, with our next stop being Budapest for the Hungaroring next Monday on the 5th of September. We then progress northwest through Europe towards Holland for Zandvoort on the 12th of September. Heading south to Le Castellet for Paul Ricard on the 19th of September. Going to be interesting to see what the Porsche can do there. Cheshire in England becomes our penultimate round at Alton Park on the 26th of September before heading back over to the continent for the finale at the Nürburgring on the 3rd of October. So a good, solid month of racing here in RCI with the Deutschland Masters as we look at our pole sitter Dario Barzaghi in the number 8 Barlas Esports Porsche. It's going to be very interesting to see if this guy can pull a gap out in sectors 1 and 2 before he gets to that infamous sector 3 where you said obviously previously the Porsche would get absolutely monstered by the grid behind.
Yeah, one to watch out for. And like you said, as we do the usual grid walk, custom liveries are still a thing in RCI as well. And we've got a few for this time. Great still to see them. Like the Mercedes to our right, the Vulps Racing. And that's a Vulps Sim Sport. And that car I know is quite a pain to do a custom livery on.
Definitely a colourful grid up and down as we see the BMW Sim Time Attack livery there to our left. Andy Boardman to the right in his usual number 69 car. And see a very interesting purple and gold livery to our left. I believe
Cadbury's.
that is Dan Evaldson. Yeah, very Cadbury's-like with the Rising Panda Racing 180. A few different sponsors down the door and a little animated racing driver by the looks of it there. To the right, obviously, the iconic Wolf Matushka pink Audi R8 hasn't changed despite the car being evoed. Can still select that livery. And we see a BMW to the left, an Audi to the right, and another Audi to the left. We see another, I think, second of our Mercedes all the way down in the BWT livery there. So Mercedes not having a strong outing. Next one from P2 is P10, being Luke Stokes. Although we're going to see how obviously the Mercedes can handle a race with its recent BOP changes. Will it come into its own when obviously the force shield burns off, or the balance on the M4s, or the Audis change enough to, warrant the extra front downforce of the Mercedes sticking it through the corners? Another custom livery we have here, the number 60, down in, I'm struggling to see on my board here. Ryan, if you could help me out. Number 60, P12, Tom Shipston.
Number 60 is P12.
Indeed. Tom Shipston had a great showing last time out, if you remember rightly, in the British Masters. One of our Silver Championship leaders and winners, I believe, has finally found himself mixing in with the Pro Boys. And of course, if you do want to partake in any RCI event, of course, do have the website, racerci.com. Anytime you can jump on there, view any standings, pre-qualifying, up-and-coming events, and sign yourself up if you want to be like one of these guys here in Split 1. Working down towards the back of the grid, Ryan, surprised to see Jordan Daly lurking towards the back end in that Mercedes.
Yeah, obviously Jordan Daly might not have had the qualifying that he wanted, but the one thing with Jordan Daly is that he always does seem to make his way forward. A bit of a sort of more sensible race driver than than the outright qualifying speed, and that's kind of what is always interesting to see when the green flag drops is who can handle their car, with it in the race trim versus just an outright qualifying. And as he says, with the heat, with the temperatures today, it's really going to be an interesting one for what the strategy may be. Do you take tires or not? And if you take your tires, well, there's no point going full fuel. If you decided not to go for tires, you would have to run, a fairly heavy tank, which is going to make the tire situation even worse. But for the people who might not have necessarily anything to lose, they might say, hey, that's nearly a 30-second gain if we can hold on to it. Well, we might see some mixed strategies here, but I'm not going to count on it.
Yeah, certainly so. Leaves the pit windows wide open as we only have to take 1 litre of fuel tonight. No tyres are mandated, so completely up to the drivers. If you want to run a much heavier tank, only drop the 1 litre in and not take tyres, or you want to run a kind of half and half, where you run a lighter tank, you put a little bit more fuel in, which then pushes you closer to that 30-second pit stop for the tyres. And just while we rock around our formation lap, we're just going to give you a rundown of what's come out on RCI this week. Tuesday, tomorrow, we find ourselves in Monza for round 4 of the APAC Piston Cup, and I've had a look at the standings around. It's looking very, very close in both Pro and Silver, so all to play for there. Wednesday is a night for our rookies to find their feet, where they head to the tricky circuit of Spa for round 4. It's going to surprise maybe a few people there. Thursdays, we give the GT4s the stage, stateside with round 5 at Watkins Glen. And Fridays, keeping it stateside, but this time with GT3 from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And of course, this Saturday, Ryan, although we're not streaming it, it is the 24 Hours of Monza multi-class GT3 and GT4. I've counted the sign-ups, and there's 70 plus teams signed up. And entries are still open until September 2nd. Do you fancy a late entry on that one? So, yeah, all to play for this week at RCI. Plenty of action going on. But tonight we do have the Deutschland Masters, and our pole sitter here, Dario Barzaghi, looking back to the Mercedes of Chris Downing. Headlights ablaze on the black Mercedes there. Ever closer to the back of Barzaghi, getting ready to go into the 2x2 formation, which will be happening soon. But Ryan, I've not asked you the question. Who is your money on before we go green?
Well, you know, when we were sat in practice and I was looking through the through the entry list, I definitely thought that it might be a day for Wolf Matushka, you know, and everything to play for there. But Barzaghi really in that Porsche has just shown some incredible speed. I'm gonna put my money on Barzaghi just because of you know the how much. Like sector 1 and 2 really matter on this circuit. If you can pull away, then you kind of that's kind of it for you. And we're waiting for the green flag, and there you go. Green flag has been dropped. It's a great start from Barzaghi. Look at the Mercedes pulling on the outside though from Chris Downing. Takes it around the outside. It's going to have the advantage for the second part of the first complex. But Barzaghi is still there on the inside as all the cars file through. We haven't had any major calamities. 2 and 3 wide almost in the back. Still coming now down to the boot. And you've still got Chris Downing trying to hang it round the outside. It is a long, long old way. Barzaghi is still managing to hang on to it. But now look, he's being under attack from, I believe that's Andy Boardman.
Yeah, Andy Boardman in the 69 BMW, not a stranger to fighting with these pro guys. We've seen him time and time again in the British Masters and the Asia Masters as Andy Boardman, I believe, darting left and right there, trying to find any bit of real estate he can, defending, I believe, from Yilmaz in the other M4, who has come under attack onto Andy Boardman. But still at the front, Barzaghi with a very minute lead over Chris Downing as they come into the section that me and Ryan have been chatting about with the Porsche straight line speed. Can the Mercedes get an answer for Barzaghi's pace through sector 1 and 2 as we ride on board here, looking back towards Chris Downing and that Mercedes? Look at the legs on it, Ryan. It's already tucked under the wing and it looks to the outside in 13 and 14, but probably thinks a little bit better of it as we see Andy Boardman there with a big slide into the side of one of the BMWs, I believe the Panda racing cars. It comes back on there, but has he missed the timing line there, Ryan? He has. Jumps back to the pits with a disqualification, obviously at the inside of turn 14. It misses a crucial timing line and you do get teleported back to the pits.
Oh, it's just a terrible day. A terrible start to the race for the 180. Obviously got the contact going on in the background. We saw Andy Boardman completely sideways and then coming back. I think we have a quick race replay of it. Coming back onto the circuit, just ended up the Panda racing car was just in the wrong place. You can see tried to go for the gap that was there. Andy Boardman was still sideways and, well, wrong place, wrong time for the 180.
Yeah, Yilmaz in the number 7, possibly the instigator there, misjudging the braking point into turn 13, running into the back of Boardman. Boardman going very sideways indeed, and then obviously catching the 180 Panda racing car. As we see Wolf Matushka there giving a friendly bump to the back of Andy Boardman, maybe not expecting Andy to break that early as Boardman comes to the inside to try and defend Wolf around the outside, but Wolf there very good on the brakes. And now we see another BMW getting involved from Brennan behind in the number 13. So very, very close hit, Ryan. I was not expecting this much action at the start.
Or Andy Boardman's being pinged this way and that way as the Audi straight line speed still showing its head, and Andy Boardman obviously carrying damage now on that car. We can see the scratches to the rear wing of that car. It's been hit not once but twice. As Wolf still trying to look this way and that way, trying to go around the outside, but probably going to look for the cutback, swooping across. But Andy Boardman is going to, well, I was going to say he's going to defend it. Andy has actually decided that now is the time to pit because he's just probably losing too much time with the battling. And what has happened to Joe Tomlin? Ooh.
Very easy to lose a car there, Ryan. Obviously you're braking and kind of flicking it into the corner at the same time, and obviously with these mid-engine cars, some of the weight in the middle of the cars, the pendulum effect almost kicks in, and very, very easy to upset the car. As we said on the grid walk, Ryan, Jordan Daly, very far back, is now somehow wormed his way up into P8. inside the top 10. How he has done that, I will never know, but an absolutely stonking drive from Jordan Daly thus far in the Merc. He brings along with him John Eraser in P9, and Luke Stokes remains in P10, I believe, where he started in that BWT pink Mercedes at the back of this train, but got a very large gaggle of cars heading into turns 12 and 13 here. Everybody within kind of like a, what I would call a slipstream window, so I think all the action is going to be down at 12 and 13 today towards the end of the lap, maybe even into 14 at the hairpin if drivers can go side by side through the previous corner. We flick back to Chris Downing at the front, and Barzaghi here, still locked, splitter to diffuser. We ride on board Chris Downing here, looking at the back of the Ballas Esports Porsche with Mad Max, I believe, written in a number plate style across the back end of that car. Curse of the commentator strikes, Ryan. Jordan Daly in that turn of 13, facing the left-hand side in the gravel. I can't believe the curse of the commentator's happened already. And Chris Downing here is now backwards in turn 1. What is going on, Ryan?
What have you done to the Mercedeses? All the Mercedeses, just too much anti-cut curb. And that's kind of what I was mentioning, how it can unsettle a car very viciously. That is exactly what I was on about. It caught the splitter. You saw the car kind of rear up, and then you are just a passenger. Realistically, there probably won't be any damage to that car, and minimal damage to the tyres. But obviously now, Chris Downing's got to fight back through the field. But that has taken all the pressure off the number 8 Ballas Esports team, and Barzaghi, who's just running away from Yilmaz.
Yeah, certainly. So it's very almost tricky as well when you do a mistake like that. The anti-cut curbs are great for 2 wheels, any more than 2 wheels or your splitter, and that is what happens. But you're now going to develop a kind of complex in your head where you think, I've done it once, and I'm going to do it again. So Chris Downing is going to be very, very cautious, I think, going into turn 1 from now on, probably giving those inside anti-cuts a bit of a wide berth. But I believe Curse of the Commentator has struck the Mercedes quite badly in that last lap. I'm awfully sorry to anybody who is driving a Mercedes right now.
Yeah, so I like how in the YouTube chat we had Mercedes. That's a good plural.
Yes, almost like Lexus and Lexi.
Yes, we just call them a gaggle of noise, really. Is that if you have multiple Lexuses, what you are is deaf.
Well, screaming V8 death down the main straight in a pack. As we ride on board here with Matt Stevens, no V8 in this car, of course, the Porsche. Looking at the back of the number 60 BMW M4 of Tom Shipston. Tom Shipston, no stranger to pressure from pro guys in the Bentley last season at the British Masters. He was very, very calm and collected, leading the majority of the races in silver, and even almost sometimes putting it to the pro guys in the Bentley. Not a very easy thing to do with the amount of power that thing kicks through its rear wheels, especially as a silver driver. The M4, probably a much friendlier platform for anybody that's not quite up together with ACC. As we look here, a replay at Wolf Matuszka in the 25, heading down to the hairpin, almost catches the back of Yilmaz. I think Wolf isn't prepared on how early those BMWs can, have to break the hairpin compared to the likes of the Audi Evo 2.
Yeah, apparently the Audi has just got some phenomenal brakes. Or Wolf has managed to get the braking technique so much that you can brake so late, but every single time he's been caught off guard by the BMWs. And look at how much the 615 that the Audi moves around. We've already seen a car round backwards there, and the 202 trying to go around the outside. We almost had an exact replay again of what happened to Bob Panda Racing.
Yeah, very close down at turns 13 and 14 today. Seeing a lot of action down there as Kwiatkowski trying around the outside of Matt Stevens, but no luck there. Very tricky place to pass in 13. It's a very wide corner, but it's only a wide corner if you're on the right line. It's very hard to go around the outside there where the camber drops away, and Matt Stevens getting very close to the back of Tom Shipson, and Krampf coming in the 404 for a bit of the action as we see a BMW part lengthways across the track. This is Mikhail Nemas into turn 1. Very argy-bargy from the Porsche, and the Porsche slows down, I believe, to kind of let the BMW catch back up, and does recede to place. So the eyes of the stewards, that is going to be obviously a very smart thing to do. Obviously, stewards looking very eagerly at split 1. Of course, have live stewarding on Split 1 on Mondays. And looking into the steward's room, they are furiously writing down. I see Grim Lilith in there, very regular steward, of course. Everybody else around, Joe Gleason, Oliver is in there, Tom, Breas, Martin, and Phil. So, all team of stewards tonight, eagerly casting their eyes over every inch of racing. But this man here, Mr. Gadger in the 615, not really spoken about him much, Ryan, but he has managed to find his way up into P5 in the Audi R8, which is very impressive indeed.
Yeah, just one of those sort of silent movers who we haven't necessarily had to talk about anything. He's just sort of made the way through, kind of like what Jordan Daly did before the curse of the commentator happened. And this is now looking from the onboard splitter cam of the 25 Wolf Matuszka. You can tell that Wolf is much more confident on the brakes in this car. Kind of has a think about looking up the inside, but decides that no, there just isn't enough space for that big performance Audi. It's going to be, I think, once again, it's going to be after this sort of first front straight, if you will, because Wolf there does appear to have so much more confidence on the brakes, but it's if you can find a way through the BMW. But look at that, the exit from the M4, and now it's just gone with the acceleration.
The M4 does have some major grunt behind in that car, obviously gapping Matuszka out of the last turn there, not even allowing anywhere near enough to get a sniff as we look back from Yilmaz diffuser cam now at the front of Wolf Matuszka's Audi. Obviously behind Wolf we do see Gadget again has made up another position, I believe. I can see Brenham's BMW behind that train again, so Gadget possibly up into 4 if I'm seeing this right. Look around the side of Wolf's car, you can see, there we go, at the side of an R8 there. So that Gadget, that a lapped car.
I think that might no, that's Nico Kumpu. The all black sort of stealth Audi. He has already pitted as the 256, down in 21st. One of the few cars who have decided to have an early pit. This is a brief replay of the earlier what happened to the 66. Porsche looks hard up the inside, and there just wasn't enough space for a Porsche there. But yeah, there's a few people who've already decided to pit. Andy Boardman is leading the cars that have already pitted. Rudy Filmholter is not a million miles away behind him. You've got the other Porsche McDonald in the 66. Nico Kumpu, I believe, had some issues at the start of this race and has decided to come down pit lane. And obviously Jordan Daly, who had a drive-through penalty earlier, that we haven't quite worked out what has been for yet, but he did come into the YouTube chat to say that this car is dangerous. So I think we can kind of assume that Mercedes' life is perhaps quite difficult here at a hot Misano.
Yeah, potentially so, Ryan. I mean, maybe with the front downforce increase, it's now made the rear end even more kind of unstable as we look at Wolf Matuszka there trying to find a way past Yilmaz, but Yilmaz making that M4 GT3 as wide as he can there, covering the inside onto the back straight, not allowing Wolf to get alongside. But Wolf, again, no stranger to running in a pack like this. He will bide his time, and then he will find a place where he knows you're weak, and he will send it up the inside, and you won't even see him coming. As we head into 13 and 14, looking to the inside, Yilmaz giving a little window, Wolf making contact, and Yilmaz there matting the throttle to try and get it spun back round instead of holding his brakes. Nearly caught out Nico Kumpu and Brenham there as well, and Yilmaz catching up with somebody else and coming back on. This is chaos, Ryan. What's going on here?
Absolute chaos in the last sector. I think we get a quick race replay, and he actually that car has closed at the pit window. We might flick through. So these are some of the cars that were coming up to the incident, but the race replay might ping off just before. Nope, here we go. And there you go, final sector. Chaos has caught out quite a few cars, and everyone's sort of scattering to get around the stranded BMW.
They look like he tried to make his way back on, and maybe the auto cut TC kicked in and spun the rear wheels more than he thought, collecting, I believe, the Porsche of Matt Stevens, nearly collecting Cramph and Shipston, had to take avoiding action as well. So Stewart's probably going to be scrutinising that one, furiously writing down notes and reanalyzing replays. But Paul Cramph, again, a driver that wasn't particularly near the front, Ryan, but has managed to kind of try not to curse the Mercedes right now, but has worked his way through. Has got himself back into P9, so he's inside the top 10, which is good. Tom Shipstead breathing down his neck, so all to play for Cramp, but very good drive so far from him. Obviously, what are we, 14 minutes in now, so JD's kind of not struggling as much as we thought it had.
Oh, and that's a very Mike Jones approved car if I've ever seen one, with the collar of the wheels. But yeah, just some people who are managing to stay out of the carnage really are really making it work. And remember how I said that sometimes a good race car is not the good qualifying car, or vice versa. Well, this man, Wolf Matuszka, obviously can deal with his car in a race scenario, because he has taken the fastest lap of the race and still holds it in that 25, despite having to work his way through traffic. But you've got to think, what has that few taps that they've had done to the aero of this Audi, and now he's got Brenham to really fight against, whereas Barzaghi is just ploughing up the road to the tune of nearly 7 seconds at the minute.
Yeah, Barzaghi certainly having a great race at the moment. Loads of clear air, really making the most of it to stretch your legs on that Porsche, break away from the pack before they can, jump within that slipstream range and make easy work of him going through sector 3. But it seems like the M4 is very, very strong out of corners. Wolf much stronger into corners and through the mid of the corner. And I'm getting very early 2000s vibes from this livery of Brenham's from the E46 M3 GTR. I don't know about you, Ryan.
Yeah, it does look like it from particularly the right hand side, and kind of from the front as well. If the diagonal was just a little bit more in the center.
Great to see some retro themed liveries. I think retro themed liveries need to come back a little bit more to all you Skinners in chat. But now we look at Brenham coming under fire from Wolf Matuszka, getting very close indeed, heading into turn 13 and again into 14. Wolf under the wing of that BMW M4 GT3. And if you're Wolf, do you debate kind of hitting early to try and get some clearer air, try and make some time back, or do you kind of hedge your bets and try and just hustle Brenham out of the way of P13? It seems Wolf gets past one car and then finds himself stuck behind another. He just hasn't had that clear air to stretch the legs of the Evo 2.
Yeah, I think whatever sort of happens at the with the current battle, Wolf will have made a strategy for the pits, and knowing Wolf, he will very much stick towards that. You know what I mean? It's just going to be a pink performance strategy, and that is that. And look who is in the background, not a million miles away again, catching back up to this, is the 23. Chris Downing has got back on the horse and has really charged back up the field. There's all the way, caught back up to the back of the 615. So that's not a million miles away from the battle for P2, basically where he was before. And you never know exactly what's going on in the pit strategies yet. Could be that Chris Downing decides, if he's got it in the strategy, for a bit of leeway here and there, decides that no, I'm gonna make the time up on Barzaghi by maybe not taking tires, by maybe taking a little bit less fuel. You just don't know with some of these people who are running long. And here we go, it's finally going to happen. I think the big performance car, the number 25, is up the inside. Can you hold it, tuck it in on the inside so you can't leave yourself open for another attack? And of course the 25 can. Wolf Matuszka up into second place overall.
Yes, an excellent move there. Very textbook of Wolf. Had the great run down at the back straight from 10 to 11. From 12 and 13, chucked up the inside of Brenham with that, slingshot effect that you get by pulling out. And speaking of strategy, Chris Downing in the pits. Maybe he's heard you, Ryan, from the comms booth here, making a comment about it. And he's thought, you know what? Ryan Mawson up there, he might be right. This might be the time to come in. So we're going to see what Downing is doing. Obviously, 42 minutes remaining in the session. With a spin on those Pirellis, will he choose to take potential tyres in this stop as well? Going to have to keep an eye out on the pit stop timer, as Paul Cramp, of course, becomes a gainer from that, jumps up into P8. George Kwiatkowski ahead of him in P7, and Luke Stokes gaining 4 positions off the start, taking himself up into P6. The Mercedes, we see a slight angle of an R8 there, spinning. Here's a replay. Nico Kumpu, very weird spin there. I've not managed to park myself on that side of the track. Normally it's on the inside, or you hit the speed bump and turn into the Audi R8 Space program. But yeah, very weird spin there from Nico Kumpu. Very unlike him. Maybe not gelling as well with the R8 Evo 2 as I thought he might, being a seasoned veteran of RCI.
I mean, I'm guessing it was just trying to throw the car hard right, because a lot of times with that sector you want to tuck the car in, you know, you kind of want to sacrifice the second half to get the exit onto the straight. And I'm just wondering if maybe there was a little bit too much curb, a little bit too much throttle taken off, you know, and that just unsettled the Audi and that sort of spun it off. And there you go, hard dive on the brakes with the 404 behind. Kwiatkowski's going to be looking in the rearview mirror, a little bit nervous at that, but everyone makes it through. But look at that, because you can still take the line with a better exit. Little bit of breathing space given from the 404.
George Kwiatkowski, another name that's a regular to RCI. I've seen him in a few championships now that I've been casting. Very strong driver. Normally he finds himself kind of up in this top half of the grid, so no stranger to being under pressure from these seasoned pros around him. And Grim Lilith has done their signature move where they slide me a piece of paper over the table with a load of stewards reports on. So we're going to start from the top with an incident on lap 1 turn 13 involving the number 7, 69 and the 180. So that was the Andy Boardman bit of contact with Everardson in the 180, who's obviously spun to the inside. The car 7 had retired from the session at the time of the penalty being given. Incident on lap 1 turn 13 involving the 7, 69, 180. Warning for car 7, dangerous driving. Car 7 has retired from the session. Incident on lap 1 turn 8 involving the 77 and the 256. Warning for 256 for avoidable contact. On lap 1 turn 10 involving the 166 and the 66. No further action. Incident on lap 2 turn 4 involving the 208. Warning for car 208. Does slow down when the incident ahead. Dangerous conduct. Incident on lap 2 turn 4 involving the 256 and the 77. Drive through for car 77. Takeout caused by Porsche not giving racing room, which caused an incident. So that's Matt Stevens, you see down in P17 with the DT next to his name, has just come in to serve that. I believe we're going to see possibly a replay here. He could come through a bit dicey, goes for the middle and just gets pincered by the Porsche and the BMW on the inside there. So interesting move there. That's probably the start of Nico's woes in this session, but nevertheless he has not given up, still soldiering on. Gains P18 with Stevens being in the pits. And the final one, incident on lap 2 turn 10 involving the 69 Andy Boardman again and the number 25. Warning for car 25 for avoidable contact. That sums up Grim Miller's giant sheet of paper that was slid over the Destiny. Bit of a mouthful there. Kwiatkowski still soldiering on. We see Kampf has dropped back behind Tom Shipston. Tom Shipston making good moves in the M4. Everybody in the top 13 still to pit, so still a lot of shuffling to go around. John Racer ahead there as we see Kampf again in the very randomly coloured Mercedes. Almost reminds me of a Mike Noble livery, Ryan.
Yeah, so I was going to say earlier on, it's Mike Noble and probably Mike Jones approved because it has some purple wheels. And we can see the all-black sort of stealth Audi of Nico Kumpu on the left, a bit of a slow car. People have got to navigate through. Raphael Huell is going to be thinking, please don't get in my way. He's got the 404 that they've been battling with for a while, but the 256 is going to slot him in front. And see, that is exactly what happens when, as a driver, you might just get a little bit spooked. You saw the Porsche kind of scuttle off and didn't really have it, didn't be able to take the optimum line. And here you go, as maybe might be a signature of some of the early pitters. Wolf Batushka comes in for what I would say is a scheduled slightly earlier, stop.
Yeah, certainly is a bit earlier than I'd expect to see Wolf Matushka come in, and Tom Shipston here in Ground Zero Racing coming under fire again from Paul Krampf in the Mercedes. Still side by side into turn 3, really not giving up on each other, these guys going at it hammer and tong, but this is going to allow the pink Porsche behind of Huell to catch up and gain that little bit of ground. He did lose to Nico Kumpu, obviously not being in the way as such, but just maybe being a bit indecisive whether to take the apex. And Tom Shipston here just going backwards at the moment, loses another place to Huell in the 21 as we see Nico Kumpu there pull off to their left hand side, possibly calling it a day. Does indeed jump back to the pits. Bit of a shame there. Kumpu does pick up a 5-second penalty for something, and Grim has slid another piece of paper across to me while I've been looking at the screen, just trying to catch up on where we've got to. 208, and then we have an incident lap 2 turn 4 involving the 256. Warning for 256 not holding his brakes, causing contact with other cars. And we have warning increased to 5 seconds due to previous warning. So I believe that was Nico Kumpu's undoing, possibly calling it a day there. And then we have an instant lap 2, turn 4, involving the 256 and the 77. Drive through for the 77, which was a Matt Stevens, which we did see the replay of in the kind of pincer movement with Nico Kumpu. And here, Chris Downing and Wolf Matuszka are now kind of together in line on track. So going to be interesting to see, can Wolf gain that 4 seconds on Chris, or can Chris, gain on the cars ahead? He is within a 30-second window, so the guys ahead do take tyres. Then could be how Chris is going to cycle himself back up the order into possibly P2 to get back behind Dario Barzaghi. Sorry. Going back to the incidents, we have an incident lap 2, turn 10, involving the 69 and the 25. Warning for 25 again for avoidable contact. Incident lap 2, turn 9, involving the 166 to 197. 5 seconds for the 197, which was Jordan Daly for a forceful overtake. Incident lap 2, turn 10, involving the 21 and the 95 racing incident. Lap 2, turn 15, involving the 69 and 25 racing incident. Lap 2, turn 14, involving the 202 and 77 racing incident. Lap 3, turn 4, involving the 202 and the 77 racing incident. And finally, lap 3, turn 9, involving the 96 and the 66, again, a racing incident. So it was being a little bit lenient maybe on this opening round, being a little bit, not forceful with their penalties. Obviously appreciating that everybody is maybe getting used to the platform of car that they've chosen, maybe not used to the mechanical grip that the thing generates, maybe not used to the way it dives into corners or is super strong on the brakes all of a sudden, and people getting caught out by that possibly. We do have another lap 6, turn 2, involving the 98 and the 66. We have a 15-second for car 66, taking out car by dive bomb. So very interesting indeed for McDonald down in P17. That 15 seconds, of course, will be added onto his final race time. So going to have to make a move. And speaking of making moves, George Kwiatkowski here, the Scot, looking to the inside of the Swiss driver of John Aracer, seeing if he can make any gap applicable for the Audi R8. Obviously, R8 on R8 here, Ryan. We did say earlier that it's very tricky, as we see it racing there again, very sideways indeed, but it's very tricky to get that edge over your opponent to allow yourself alongside and to try and draw level with them. Obviously, equal machinery, equal power, maybe a slight change in setup, but not enough to warrant, a big performance difference.
No, exactly, and that always makes it, just that little bit harder. Some other interesting facts that we've just been told as well, the pit stop requirements that we mentioned at the start of the race, they have been changed since we stepped up into the commentary box within the driver's briefing. Obviously, something was changed around. They've had a 25-second minimum pit time, which is how Downing has made up the time on Wolf Matuszka. We don't believe that Downing's taken tyres, whereas Wolf has, because something has happened in the pit stop. Obviously, the transponder's gone a bit squiffy, and we have no pit stop delta for Wolf Matuszka. Or maybe it's some secret, secret strategies that we must not know his secret strategies. But yeah, we don't know how long Wolf was in the pits. We can't confirm he came in and left. So, there you go.
I mean, logically, looking at the position swap, Wolf probably did take tyres. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Mercedes nurses its tyres towards the end. I believe Downing came in possibly with about 40 minutes to spare, whereas Wolf came in a couple of laps later, 37 minutes to spare. And obviously, if Wolf's taken tyres, his are going to be much, much nicer than Downing's that have, been spun on and possibly scrubbed a little bit and grained up as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how Downing claws back and how Wolf starts attacking, because I believe that gap has come down to about 1.6 seconds as we ride on board here with Raphael Kuhl in the slightly rose pink Porsche, not the pink pig Porsche as we've been calling it all race. Ryan looking at the back of, I believe this is Cramp's Mercedes in the luminous pink wheeled, pink middle section, green fronted, black rear, as the Porsche towards the outside, trying to see what's out there. Probably not a lot of grip, probably quite a few marbles, so probably not the best idea. Maybe trying to do the old switchback, but obviously no room out there really to do it or to launch your car down the straight. You want to be getting the best exit you can, even with the Porsche's slightly buffed top speed kind of aero balance change it had in the recent BOP, but looks a lot tidier through 13. Then Cramped Mercedes, they got to the inside a lot tighter in that Porsche. Obviously, both of these guys are still yet to pit, so this could obviously be decided on pit lane, depending if one of these guys takes tyres as they go around again into the last corner. Both very tidy indeed, but looking towards the back, they do have a BMW possibly getting into the mix, but I believe that is a lap down car looking at the board. And we see Kwiatkowski here getting very flashy on the back of John O'Racer, possibly starting to overdrive that BDG Sim Racing 202 R8 Evo 2. As we see a little bit of a slide there coming out of 3 down into 4. John O'Racer not going to be phased by the pressure Kwiatkowski is putting on him. Obviously, O'Racer, a seasoned vet of RCI events. As all the meanwhile, this allows Cramped in the green Mercedes behind 404 to catch to the back of them, and soon this could be a 3-way fight. And obviously, if you're Kwiatkowski sat in the middle of 2 cars, not an ideal scenario to be in, as Kwiatkowski's definitely looking at a lot stronger on the brakes down into turn 8, running up into 9 and 10, not close enough to make a lunge. Obviously, a racer taking a little bit of a shadow line, leaves the door open. Kwiatkowski's up the inside, side by side down the straight. Now it's going to be the battle of the drag of the R8 Evo 2. Who has less wing? Who has more wing? Heading down into the kink of turn 11 towards 12 and 13. One of these guys is going to have to yield, because 2 into 1 simply doesn't go down here, Ryan, as we saw earlier on, a few drivers getting caught out by the weight transfer, and Kwiatkowski keeps it to the inside. A racer probably playing it a little bit sensibly, knows that the battle has been lost at the point where Kwiatkowski has pulled alongside and decides to back out. And look at the legs Kwiatkowski's got on a racer now. He's pulled out a massive gap going around 15 and 16 as Luke Stokes comes in from P3. He's managed to work his way up. So we see a replay helmet cam on board here, slams on the brakes, gets it nice and tight to the Armco, and big sideways moment coming in the pits. Very impressive. Still manages to hit the pit limiter button. It's so easy to not remember where the board is sometimes. It's a very late pit limiter board, as we did see Dario Barzaghi in the pits, which of course promotes Gajda up to first in the 615 R8. But now this is the battle of the big boys here. We have Wolf Matuszka and Chris Downing in the R8 and AMG, both very quick drivers, as we saw in qualifying. It's going to be very interesting to see. We believe Wolf has taken tyres in the Pink Performance Audi, whereas Downing hasn't, and that's how Downing's managed to jump ahead. But can Wolf find a way around that giant 3-pointed Star GT3 car? Only time will tell through turns 1 and 2. Very tidy, no doors open, everybody keeping it very tight to the inside, hitting all the apexes. But all the meanwhile, of course, behind is Brenham in the number 13 BMW, and he's looking very racy towards the back of Wolf now, and this could be a very interesting 3-way fight about to happen, Ryan.
Yeah, very much so. I think as well, it's starting to come into play now. Who's really managed to look after those tyres? We saw a little bit when we were riding on board 404, you know, we're starting to slide around, and we've seen a couple of the Audis have little twitches here and there, but this, you know, with the tyre change that we're going to assume that Wolf Matuszka did, because we didn't have the pit delta, he has been catching Downing at 1 second a lap, which is, you know, that is not just the speed of the Audi. That really is a handling. You can see in this section, though, you can't really do anything with that extra handling that you've got, just because the Mercedes still has the straight line speed, despite the temperature, despite the worn out tyres. And as he says, Brenham has kind of come out of nowhere, but Wolf Matuszka has just picked himself up a drive-through.
I didn't want to interject there, Ryan, but I did see that pop up when they came onto the back straight. Wolf has picked up a drive-through for something. We do not know what, but he's diving in now to serve it. Comes steaming in the pit lane, very close to the inside, jumps on the pit limiter, gets it slowed down for the line, but I'm yet to have the piece of paper slid across the desk from Grim Lilith. But I can see the stewards next door are furiously writing on their pads, getting ready to send it across to us. But this obviously promotes Brenham up behind Downing now, and if, you know, Brenham plays this smartly, he's going for a move on Downing. He's not... I was going to say, if he plays it smartly and sits behind him, they could, of course, drag themselves up a few positions and maybe start catching the likes of Cramp and Barzaghi ahead. As Cramp there, still in the pit lane, sorry, timing delta has just updated. But it is now Barzaghi, Downing and Brenham, our top 3, who have obviously already pitted. And Brenham here, we've seen the M4 be very strong down the back straight, essentially, or the front straight, I guess we could call it, on this one, but not enough to get alongside Downing. However, looking very good on corner exit as Brennan's car compared to Downing's. Maybe, I don't know if Brennan has taken tyres either. We've not really got a lot of pit delta at our disposal today, Ryan. Very unfortunate, but I'm still waiting for Wolf Matushka. We see a race replay here. What are we looking at here? Luke Stokes coming round and, oh, this is a bit of a questionable one for me.
Pit exit here is always quite a difficult one to call, because it is, you're on the, you're going into the sort of the outside of the corner, coming out of pit lane, and it is quite a fast pit exit. You can actually get up to more speed than you would just taking the corner normally, just coming out of the pits. But if people are running wide, they obviously won't see you on the very edge. And yes, that's going to be one for the stewards to look over and decide. Obviously, Wolf didn't cross the white line, but I can't actually remember which what you're going to have yielding to traffic or not.
Yeah, I possibly just spotted on the sheet of paper, Grim has slid across about Wolf's penalty. I believe lap 8, turn 14, involving the 7 and the 25. We have a drive-through for car 25 for a takeout, and I believe this is what we're going to see here. This was what kind of fired off the Yilmaz kind of incident, essentially, where he went to loop it, stopped, and then went to loop it again and got caught up, and yeah, all kinds of bad stuff. So Wolf, obviously being seen as the instigator on that one, has been given a drive-through, so he has slipped back down into P15. But obviously, fresh Pirellis, he's going to hopefully be able to make a few more gains out of that. Yeah, he's got the likes of Luke Stokes, Huell, Phil Malta, and Cramp to get through. But here we see Brennan tucking into the back again of Downing's Mercedes, literally nearly bump drafting through the kink, Ryan, of turn 11. This is crazy. Brennan looks to the outside. Can he make it stick around this very awkward turn? He kind of dips the track limits a little bit, but gives Downing the inside line into the hairpin of 14, heading up to the penultimate corner of 15. It's a very much a one-line corner, this. You're not going to fit too wide at the same speed through here. Heading into the last turn, Brennan not close enough to make a dive, but this Brennan guy is looking very, very competitive. I've never seen this guy in RCI, and Downing maybe playing it very sensibly here. Knows that Brennan is the quicker of the two, pulls across to the right-hand side on the start, finish straight, and lets him go. So possibly Downing maybe playing a very smart game here. He's going to use the maybe draft that the BMW M4 generates to maybe suck himself up onto the back of Barzaghi ahead. But they are 15 seconds to the good up the road now, Ryan. So really stellar drive from Barzaghi in the Barlas Esports number 8 Porsche.
Yeah, I think as well, part of this is, I'm going to say that Brennan has taken tyres. I don't think that Mercedes, he obviously Downing didn't take tyres because of the time jump onto Wolf Matushka, but I just don't think that has really played out for that Mercedes, not with the heat that we're facing and, the fuel load that car's been carrying around. It's probably now just getting to the point where it's getting harder and harder to drive. And the flash of the lights from Luke Stokes trying to get by Rudy Phil Malta, just wanting to get by, because in the rearview mirror as well is being completely filled by the Pink Performance Audi. This is a very dangerous moment. 2 wide, almost 3 wide coming up onto the back straight, but it's going to be Luke Stokes with the superior drag out of the Mercedes and in the background as well. Now that puts Rudy Phil Malta under attack from Wolf Matushka, who has actually got through, as well as the purple BMW from earlier of Ed Varsen, the 180, got their disqualification overturned and is back out on track. Even though they are still 1 lap down, they're going to see the checkered flag.
Yeah, it's great to see, obviously, guys such as Ed Varsen not giving up there. Stewards looked at it as probably a special case of, he kind of had nowhere to go. The only logical line was to cut across the grass to avoid taking anybody else out. But obviously ACC, with that line, you do have to pass through 14. Not liking it, teleporting him back to the pits and disqualifying him. Stewards have overridden it, and it's great to see Ed Varsen be getting back into the race, trying to take his lap back from Phil Malta. Obviously, Phil Malta is not obliged to yield to this. However, maybe slowing him down, constantly watching his mirrors. So if Rudy plays it smart, like I think he might soon, he might just let Ed Varsen go past, possibly use the wake of the M4 to close back up onto the back as Ed Varsen there nearly catches himself out, and I think possibly calling it a day there. Just turned way out of it and jumps back to the pits, Ryan. So we were saying it's great that they haven't given up, but it appears that possibly the final straw was trying to fight back for 20 minutes.
Possibly. We'll have a keep an eye on what the 180 is doing, but that now just leaves the two Porsches, the 66 of McDonald and the 46 of Rudy Filmotter. Even though at the minute, if Rudy does get overtaken, it's not going to be any skin off the 46's back, because the 66 is carrying a 15-second time penalty. And once again, considering these are match machinery, it looks that that the 66 might have taken tyres and the 46 didn't, because there's just some, the cornering speeds between these two cars, even though they're the same, is vast. And there you go, the 66 is going to fire it up the inside, still almost make the apex, despite going, too wide and being off the line. And now they just got to run away up the road. So Rudy's got 20 minutes to hang on to basically 15 seconds.
I think if anybody can do it, probably Rudy can. Obviously, another seasoned veteran of RCI events. We have seen him turn up to a lot, being a South African sim racer, always finding his way into, especially the Monday championships I seem to be casting. But very strange how George McDonald car, the 66, is a Flying Lizard Motorsports car with no lizard. However, the lizard is on Rudy Filmolter's car of Dropping the Hammer Racing. I think somebody needs to switch a few vinyls around and put a few stickers on a few other cars. As we flick to a race replay here of Brenham on Downing again. I believe this is the overtake where Downing kept to the right. Brenham coming out to the left to easily go into turn one. So let him by, gave him a lift. Smart move probably by Downing, knowing that Brenham is a lot quicker here. He has pulled out a 2.7 second gap on Downing. As we go to the front here, one of two men not to pit yet is Gadgster in the 615 Project D Audi R8 Evo 2, and just behind him, I believe on the road somewhere in the back, is John Eraser, 15 seconds back, still yet to pit as well. So two Audis last standing. Barzaghi should of course take back the lead, providing all goes well up to that point. 22 seconds to the good. Obviously about a minimum of 25 seconds in the box you have to spend. So, of course, that should be Barzaghi's lead back to him. As track limits being pushed there by Gadgster. The Mercedes, the Mad Panda car behind. I'm not sure who this is, but looking very racy indeed. Possibly trying to stick to the back of Gadgster to use the slipstream to, tow himself along. I believe it's Roskam, another driver that we see a lot of, the Belgian driver in the Mad Panda Mercedes. And we do see him time and time again in RCI Monday events. I feel like I'm saying this a lot tonight, Ryan, but it's great to see we do have regular drivers who do, turn up week on week on Mondays, and we get to know them a little bit here.
Yeah, and then we keep shuffling around the Monday Championship. You have to lure them in. You see, you lure drivers in, like a wild animal. You have to sort of put the nice things in front of them, and then you're like, right now, you fool, you're gonna have to drive the Audi for a whole season. Are you happy with your choice? Because you're going to have to learn to like it. But yeah, the 615 continuing along. It's going to be interesting to see what it does with the Mad Panda Mercedes. Will the 615 let them by? Because it's no skin off their back. The 96 is looking incredibly racy, and obviously with that fresh pit stop under that car quite a while ago, but it has at least been down pit lane, whereas no one else has at the minute. 404 still all over the back of Kwiatkowski. So as much as 404 got past, he definitely hasn't let up on it. And this might be the moment. A bit of a bobble there from the 202. The 404 fires up the inside, but he's going to leave himself out for a bit of an attack. But you saw the 202. The front end lightly wiggled, and it just was not enough grip for the 202 to mount an attack back. That could have ended up being a switchback once again. But the 404 back out ahead in at least, so far, P8 overall.
An excellent showing from Crampf in the Mercedes. We did see him towards the kind of back end of the grid in the Mercedes. It was in one of those silent movers we were talking about, just kind of, wiggled his way up through the snake of cars. And we now look to the back of Kwiatkowski. I believe Hewell is coming under fire now, tucking in the back of the R8, seeing if that Porsche Bop has done anything for it at all. Down into the hairpin of turn 8. as Huell comes out side by side, heading up into 9 and 10, interestingly. Kwiatkowski possibly struggling slightly in the R8 now, fires it up the inside into 10. He's not making it easy for Huell around the outside, but good drive from the Porsche. Obviously, engine over the rear axle gives it great traction out of corners. The R8, obviously, engine in the middle, becomes a little bit skittish, especially towards back end of the race, but the straight line speed there of the Audi R8 allows it to come back towards the outside into 11 and 12. Maybe playing it a little bit more sensibly. Kwiatkowski backs out. Huell there takes definitely more than the track limit, crossing the white line with all 4 tires, and Kwiatkowski again sideways out of the hairpin of 14, and this now allows Luke Stokes in the Mercedes behind with a 5-second penalty to gain up the back, and he's got a bit of a train of pink cars, as I've just spotted. Wolf Matuszka there all fired up, and Kwiatkowski moves to the left very early indeed, not making it easy for Stokes, not backing out, but not putting up much of a fight either, and this allows Matuszka to come to the back of Kwiatkowski, and he's going to be eager to get a move on and try and get round the black and red car of the Scotsman ahead. As we see the gap, Stokes there is pulled ahead. It's a good few car lengths at least. Kwiatkowski, I don't know if he's probably hasn't taken tyres, Ryan. Looking at traction issues that car has compared to what Wolf Matuszka has. He's slowly slipped backwards from what was, a very strong P8 at the time.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is the few cars that haven't taken tyres, like Downing and like Kwiatkowski. As you see, it wasn't even really a contest. Wolf easily got the car down onto the apex, and Kwiatkowski was still fighting with it, going all the way up. This is the long way around the outside, and there's a bit of a contact. See, the 202 has a bit of a wiggle there. It's going to be down a drag race down the back. But even with Wolf taking the long way all the way around, he is still managed to get the better exit of the drive out. So I think there's just some few cars in this grid that took the gamble, didn't take the tyres, but it has just not paid off for them with the extreme temperatures, with the fuel load, and with how hard this track is on the tyres, and how much battling that we had in the early race. I just don't think it has worked out for a lot of the drivers who haven't taken tyres.
Certainly been a super scrappy race indeed. Just touching back on Luke Stokes' 5-second penalty. Lap 21, turn 4, involving the 166 and the 25. So Wolf Matuszka involved in that one. I believe that was for the pit lane exit. 5 seconds for 166 for avoidable contact. So not a good move there for Luke Stokes. As we see Michael Nemczak here in the number 98 Rower Racing BMW, looking towards the inside of Tomlin ahead in the 95 Audi. Again, Tomlin, another driver, I believe, that did get caught up in some opening lap incidents, but has managed to fight his way back. As he's fighting with the steering wheel coming out of the complex of 4 and 5 into 6. This allows Nemczak right up behind the diffuser of that R8 Evo 2. We've seen the BMW be very strong down here, but Nemczak maybe with a little bit of a different aero setup on that car, not allowed to drive side by side with Tomlin. Does eke out a nice little gap there. So Tomlin not under fire from that BMW anymore, but still I don't think this battle is done yet, as we see more pink on pink action here with Huell and Stokes going into turn 13, 14 into the hairpin. Huell been very good through there all race in the nearly slightly pink pig Porsche, however the team name is, as we ride on board with the get speed of Luke Stokes into the last turn. Somebody's taken out my braking marker that I normally use for that turn. Darn those pesky cars destroying boards. But Huell certainly looking like the stronger car through Sector 3. We did say this at the beginning, Ryan, the Porsche with the quickest Sector 3, but not with the first sector or the second sector. So we might see Stokes lure the Porsche back in. It might have been the opposite, I'm being told in my ear, actually. Possibly the Porsche the other way around. But looking at the back of Huell, Stokes, getting very close indeed. I don't think this one's going to be done yet. And all the while, in the mirror of Stokes, we're seeing Wolf Matuszka creeping in. So Stokes is going to be keen to get past Huell if he does catch him, obviously with a 5-second penalty to be served on top of his race time. It's going to shuffle him back a few places, so all the ground Stokes can make up, he is going to try and do, Ryan.
Yeah, and I mean, at the minute for Raphael Huell, the best thing would be for Luke Stokes to stay behind him. As you see the Mercedes take a bit of a dive into the last hairpin, but just the grip. You could hear the tires scrubbing on that Mercedes. They are really starting to wear out. But yeah, for Raphael Hewell, he's going to hope that he needs to hold back the hard charging Wolf Matuszka in that 25, because they've only got 11 minutes left. But at the rate that Wolf is catching, you can see him in the background even more now. It's so a second off the back of Luke Stokes. Really, seemingly can't ditch. Raphael Hewell can't ditch the 166 of Stokes. So it's coming down to the wire, really. I don't think he's going to manage to catch back up to the 404 in front. I think that might be a bridge too far. But yeah, for Raphael Hewell, if he's going to keep that top 10 position, he's really got to hope that Wolf Matuszka doesn't get by Stokes.
Yeah, as soon as Matuszka gets past Stokes, it's certainly going to be game on for Hewell watching his mirrors. And speaking of watching, looking towards the top of the timing board, we still have Gadgster and Eraser yet to pit, with just under 9 minutes of the pit window open. So hopefully they have remembered that there is a mandatory stop here, Brian. We have seen it a few times in RCI before, where drivers who hop multiple championships have got their pit rules confused between the two and not quite realised that they do have to come into the pit lanes. So eyes peeled towards the front of the board to see where Gadgster and Eraser do finalise themselves. But obviously a nice clear out at the moment. They're not going to want to particularly come in and give that up as we look back from Hewell's rear wing towards the Mercedes into the weaker section for the Porsche. As obviously the Mercedes gains on the brakes, it's just an illusion. Obviously when the hammer goes down, the gap does open up again. We're going to see how much can Stokes gain back on Hewell's Porsche, coming down into the final complex of turns into 11, 12 and 13 very easily. Look at the gain the Mercedes gets on the brakes, but then loses it again, obviously through the corner. And Wolf Matuszka inching ever closer to the back of Stokes, and Stokes just cannot seem to catch Hewell. Porsche just has it over him everywhere, it seems. Not even in sector 3. The Mercedes is definitely struggling, Ryan, as you said, with those Pirellis.
Yeah, I think as much as we thought it might be, we might see a big swing, a big change in the cars as the fuel burns off. I think just with the tires, with the temperature, that the Mercedes are really chewing up those tires, and that then is hurting them in the one sector where they do have it over the Porsche, just because they can't put the power down and they can't put they can't brake as late as they necessarily want. And the Porsche is still hanging on despite the despite the change in the fuel balance and the tires. They're still managing to hang on to it.
Maybe Hewell has done some kind of clever setup trick where it's a little bit weaker, maybe with a full tank, and he's kind of geared it more towards the latter half of the race. Maybe he's taken tyres knowing that this was possibly his choice, and the only reason why Stokes just cannot quite catch the Porsche of Hewell, but catching is Matuszka behind the 25 Audi R8 Pink Performance. It looks to the back of the BWT Get Speed sponsored car. Through the kinks of 11, 12 and 13 we go again. Matuszka just not close enough to fire it up the inside of Stokes from this far back, but keeping it nice and clean for the hairpin of 14 towards penultimate corner of 15 and last corner of 16. Not really passing places these last two corners. Again, only one route really around them. Very heavily cambered, kind of sucks the car through the inside. So if you're on the outside, you always get a really bad run, and you can never ever pull off a pass. I've not personally seen it in my history of ACC. Wolf Matuszka hitting a 135.190 last time by, best lap 134.3, so definitely very far away from his best lap. Obviously the cars at their lightest now, with tyres being at their worst for some of these guys. Can't quite claw on, as Matuszka definitely is lurking ever closer to the back of Stokes, and I think possibly this lap, Ryan, we might see a move coming out from Wolf.
Well, that Pink Performance Audi has been getting bigger and bigger in the mirror, but even then, still he managed to, or not as has not ditched Hewell. But you see every single time on the braking, you see that Pink Performance Audi just get closer and closer. And as well, when you're sat in the race car, you'll know as well when you're looking up 6 minutes and 38 seconds. You're trying to, judge in your head how many laps you're going to have left. It's not going to be more than 5 this time around, and the 615 has finally come down pit lane, so they have finally decided to take their mandatory stop. bit of a race replay here from the 66 Porsche, bit of an over and under on the Kwiatkowski. And that Audi really is sort of ailing with the Pirellis. And there you go, the 615 has come almost off the jacks and is out, and there you go, Wolf Matuszka all over the back of Stokes. We get a race replay of what happened here. Wolf with the drive off the corner right up to the back of the splitter. Don't even think, well, I don't think there was much room for another coat of paint there. And now, there you go, the 25 has got around it. We'll get a quick race replay of the overtake. It's a drag race down to the line. Stokes must have had a problem in the last corner. And, you know, Wolf just firing that Audi up. And there you go. So the 25 now gets to chase down Raphael Huell with 5 minutes and 30 left on the clock, as the last car left to pit, which has got to do it in the next 2 laps, looking at where they are, is John Aracer in the 699.
Certainly so, and touching back on your point, just looking up at the clock there, MSAC going very wide. Not sure which turn this was. This was down into 4 and 5. Completely misjudges the break-in and flicks it to the left, hits the grass, and ABS says, "You're not stopping this time." But going back to your point of the timing, looking up at it, you know, as a driver, it's the longest 6.5 minutes of your life. Every time you look, it feels like it's not, the clock isn't even moving, and you know, your brow's getting sweaty, your hands are getting clammier, you're getting more nervous watching that car in the mirror. And Andy Boardman, a driver with a very bad opening lap, is now on the back of Downing, and Downing doing very similar almost of what he did earlier on, letting Brenham through, but not actually letting Boardman through this time. Boardman looking very racy indeed. See the damage on the car has been repaired, so he's going to be fired on all cylinders. Probably even took tyres if he's taken damage. So we know Downing didn't take tyres, and we know Boardman did. So Boardman is definitely going to be on for a pass at some point, but he's only got 4 minutes 10 to get it done. So he's going to have to really knuckle down and see how fast he can make that BMW. And heading down now into turn 8, this could be it. Boardman alongside, and I believe he's even cleared him before the braking zone. Absolutely stonking straight line speed from the M4 GT3 as Luke Stokes into the pits for a drive-through. Just looking down the list, I've not seen
the
why that was.
I think it's track limits. I saw the 166 going through sector 3, and then the track limits, or the drive-through pinged up, which is probably the place. And this is now an absolute gaggle. Raphael Huell trying to get by the 615, who's kind of fresh out of the pits after so long on the track. You kind of think that with that long, they won't have taken tyres. It's now a 3 wide, and Raphael Huell coming off the worst, having to commit to the outside line, ended up pinned out there, which has let Wolf Matuszka through. But he's still now stuck behind the 615. So for Wolf Matuszka, that is a great point. I don't think that the 615 is going to have much sort of to battle with, as Wolf fires it up the inside and has overcooked it. 615 back up the inside. There's going to be a touch. It's going to be another 3 wide once again. You're going to have to sort it out soon, lads. 3 wide into this corner doesn't work. And Wolf Matuszka has ended up sideways. Yeah,
very interesting driving from all 3 of these guys here. Wolf I didn't expect Wolf to go for the inside in the penultimate corner of turn 15, but he did, and it didn't pay off. Gage to slam the door shut on that Audi R8. A little bit of friendly fire going on here between the marks. Obviously, you don't want to be hindering your own mark too much, but we unfortunately don't have a constructors, so it is all to play for on the drivers. But you kind of think a little bit of mutual respect might be given as Wolf set up the inside into 4. Gage to leave the door open this time. Now Wolf's going to be there. He doesn't want to get hip and shouldered out of the way like last time. Wolf cutting very close to the grass, and Huell now with a stonking run through turn 6 down into the kink of essentially 7 into 8 of the hairpin. Side by side, the Porsche not quite ahead by the braking zone. Gage going to try and stick it around the outside. Huell keeping it tight to the inside, but obviously the inside is now going to become the outside, and we saw what happened last time with Gage getting a little bit hip and shoulder on Huell. Can Huell maybe play it smart this time? Try for the switchback. He's hanging it around the outside. He's going to pray that those Porsche tyres are a little bit stickier than the R8 of Gage, coming down the back straight towards the kinks of 11, 12 and 13. Huell not remotely close to get a move done down here, so I think it's going to be another lap as Kwiatkowski looks like he's gone for a venture into the grass. John Aracer sends it up the inside of Aracer from quite a way back, and Kwiatkowski coming off the worst of the two. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of friendly fire between the Audi drivers in these dying minutes of the race, Ryan.
But I think it's also a lot of people really starting to get desperate and knowing that they have to, they have to make the move basically now. I think they might, looking at where the leader is, where Barzaghi has just driven away from this field, mind you, and has taken back the fastest lap of the race. We might get one more lap as the 615 has to brake early, but the 21 is right there. I'm being told as well it is actually the final lap of the race. So for the 21, you know now that you're going to have to make the move now or never. And that is why I think we're seeing a lot of late aggressive moves. But also, still have to remember that the stewards will be watching. It will be interesting to see if we have anything post-race to talk about next week. But looking up to the line, the leader racing on, I think we might get one more unless Barzaghi slows down. No, there you go. 21 seconds. Number 8 crosses the line. We will get one more lap of racing.
It's going to play into the hands of Fuel and Gashta here. Fuel is going to have another crack at this R8 in the next lap as he tucks in very nicely out of the hairpin, down the back straight of turn 10. Tries to set himself up maybe for a little bit of a better run towards 11, 12 and 13. We have seen him go side by side through here before, so you want to be very careful not to upset that Porsche rear end. It is very, very easy to do, as I found out a few times, been stung here myself in a few different platforms. So high speed. Very easy, slightest steering movement, slightest jab on the brakes or coming off too quick and really upset the car. But Huell looking closer than ever now. A little bit of a sideways moment out of 15 towards 16, but closes right up on the brakes. He is looking like he's overdriving that car a lot, Ryan. He's kind of braking a little bit too late. He's kind of missing apexes. He needs to kind of mentally reset for this final lap and see if he can really get a run on Gashta. We've seen him be very quick out of turn 6, so maybe he can kind of, kind of hang back a little bit, get a good run and try and pull alongside before the braking of turn 8.
Gonna have to do in a Porsche, because if you end up coming into sector 3 and you're still behind that Audi, then it's really going to be game over, because you just don't have the speed to overthrow an Audi. And we've seen what happens when you get alongside. You just end up on the outside, hung out to dry, and you don't get the run. Is Raphael Huell gonna look up the inside into the braking zone? We'll find out in a minute, as the Team Ballers Esports, Dario Barzaghi, takes the win at Misano by a commanding lead. Swapping back to one of the final few battles on the track. 21 still behind. It is also going to be Brenham in the second place in the 13. A great drive from the Norwegian driver. Really came out of nowhere. And Andy Boardman kept his nose fairly clean, kept it on the track for the Greased Weasel Racing. I can need to English, ladies and gentlemen. And ends up coming, and that is your top 3. Chris Downing, obviously the big loser out from there, so falling down. Just the strategy just wasn't it that time. And looking back, this battle, it's going to come down to the last few corners. Raphael Huell had a little bit of a splitter alongside, but couldn't be. Coming into the last corner now, you can see the lights flashing, just hoping it's going to be a drag race if he can launch it off. The Porsche has the tiniest bit better run, but the Audi speed prevails, and Raphael Huell will finish in 9th.
Just to interject there, Ryan, there was an incident on lap 35, turn 10, involving the 21 and the 615 of Gajda, picked up a 5-second penalty. So Huell will take that from penalty alone. As we flick back to a race replay, I believe this could be the Gajda incident. Possibly not. Don't believe so. Looked fairly clean there between Machuska and Huell, but Huell will, of course, fire himself back up into P8. So determination did get him somewhere, and everybody has crossed the line. Flicking to a race replay, I believe this is the Gajda penalty now of, just shuts the door on Matushka, even though he's kind of alongside. Huell has to take avoiding action, so possibly stewards not liking that one at all, as Phil Monson, I believe, has finished. I believe every driver has taken the checkered flag. And this was the 5-second penalty, as we see another replay from Gajda here, elbowing out Huell as well. Stewards probably not.
The top of the hairpin. It was kind of, he was already alongside.
Stewards not looking too friendly on that, but everybody has crossed the line now, Ryan, and Barzaghi, like you say, does take the win with Brennan in second. Andy Boardman, despite his first lap incident, comes back for a P3. Chris Downing, strategy not playing into his hands, P4. Tom Shipston, a bit of a dark horse. We didn't really see him making many moves up the field, but he has found himself in P5, Krampf in P6, Machuska 7, Kuhl in P8, Gadster in 9th, and John Eraser rounds out your top 10. George Kwiatkowski, unfortunately, just did not have the pace in the second half. He comes in at 11th. Phil Walter in 12th, Tomlin 13th, McDonald with a hefty penalty down to P14, Nemsak with a bit of unlucky late breaking at the end there, caught himself out in P15, Roscam 16, Luke Stokes down in 17th after a great mid half of the race. Shame to see that. Matt Stevens 18th, Jordan Daly 19th, Am in 20th, then a couple of retirements of Edvarsson, Kumpu, and Yilmaz. So that was a very exciting race, Ryan.
Considering how much action we had on track and how much excitement we had, to only see 3 retirements in a boiling hot Misano, which is a track that, you know, a lot of people don't necessarily like, that's quite good. And as he says, a lot of people, you know, a lot of big movers who we just were not really expecting, really starting to gel with their cars. And that's really going to start to make it interesting, I think, for the rest of the season. You know, like you said, Tom Shipston, not that long ago, was a silver driver, and he's now really starting to gel with the M4. Coming from a Bentley, though, where we saw him do really well, it's another front-engined car. It's another very, very stable car. We might see someone who's actually managed to unlock the potential of it again.
Yeah, certainly so. BMW, obviously, in the latest BOP, did have a little bit of fat added to it, made it a little bit heavier to try and draw it back in line with everything else. But Tom Shipston proving that it can be a very competitive car still, and Brennan as well, finishing up in P2 in the other BMW. As we flick back to some race highlights, just a quick message from our sponsors. We have AK Informatica providing all of our server solutions here at RCI. However, they also do provide high-end hardware, peripherals, and accessories, including sim gear. Driver61.com. You can get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code. Link is in the description below, and head over to driver61.com. And finally, Fanatec, your one-stop shop for the best sim racing equipment on the market. You can, of course, use our affiliate link in the description, which won't cost you a penny, but it does, of course, help us here at RCI with the running costs put into all of the championships that we do have on offer. Obviously, Tuesday, we have the APAC Piston Cup. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we do have the rookies. Thursdays with GT4s, Fridays, GT3s, and of course, the Monza 24 hours this weekend with over 70 teams signed up. And of course, entries are still open till September 2nd. So if you and your friends want to jump on for some 24 hours this weekend, feel free to do so at RCI here with us. But yeah, battles up and down the field, some big movers, some big losers, and some very big surprises of people I wasn't quite expecting to see near the top of the field. But I am very excited for what else this championship can bring us, Ryan, as we do head to Hungary next week for the Hungaroring. Going to prove possibly the battleground where the Porsche is really going to shine in all those twisty sections.
And a lot of times it seems when RCI seem to go to Hungaroring, we always have some absolutely fantastic racing. We don't know why, just every time that RCI has gone there, I can remember multiple races that have been really, you know, really high energy and some real great moves. And even ones that I have raced in myself, I think it's just, you know, something about the track just kind of brings it all together. But it will, once again, be a big test of different cars. The front, the mids, and the rears, well, they're all going to have sections which play into them and sections which they, hey, I'm looking at that chicane in the middle.
Yeah, certainly so. It's going to be a very interesting season coming up for the Deutschland Masters with Audi, BMW, Porsche, and Mercedes fighting it out to see who can be the best of the German marques. But from myself, John Dalton, from Ryan Mawson in the box, and from Stewie Heilman behind the cameras, and of course, all the stewards in the box who have live stewarded this race tonight. Adios, farewell, and we will see you in a week's time at Hungary.
And ta-ra for now.